the rest of their lives in prison. I mean, and that's just in the UK.
3 countries currently want a piece of Andrew Tate, and the strange part is that none of them can actually move, guys. Britain wants him in a courtroom, Romania won't let go of him, and America is the one physically holding him while everybody argues. What's on the table if the UK case goes the distance is not a few years inside.
The final question, if they were convicted on all counts of all these charges, what kind of sentence could they be looking at?
The rest of their lives in prison. I mean, and that's just in the UK.
The rest of their lives, and that's before you factor in anything Romania might still do. Something else got confirmed since the last video too. Despite the family connections between the Trump camp and the Tates, the president has made clear he isn't stepping in on the extradition, and CNN has reported that directly. A large section of Tate's own audience took that badly, with the general reaction being that he backed Trump publicly for years and got nothing when it mattered. Tate himself has spent months making clear who he thinks is really behind all this, and it isn't anyone in Washington.
Look at his face. That's the face of evil. Keir, when you lock me up in Belmarsh, which I know you're going to do, that's fine.
Their first court appearance has now happened, and as expected, this is going nowhere fast. Both brothers remain in custody, with CNN reporting it approached the Florida Attorney General's office for details on where and how they're being held. The judge was careful to point out that Monday's hearing wasn't a criminal proceeding at all, and that the extradition process hasn't been formally completed. Over the coming weeks, a US district judge decides whether the conditions for extradition are actually met. Here's the part that doesn't add up for me. Britain's own position has been that they're waiting for Romania to finish before he gets sent over. Romania gave an update in July, and their investigation is still active and ongoing. So the request being pushed now sits directly on top of a case that hasn't closed.
This involves, there's an English element here, so obviously it's important that justice is done, and human trafficking is obviously, to my mind, a security. This is a live issue, as he'll appreciate. And therefore I'll tread carefully. But the principle is absolutely clear. Justice must be done in all cases, including in this case. But I won't go into the details because this is a live case, as he knows.
The US and the UK operate under an extradition treaty, which means each side has agreed to hand over people the other wants to prosecute. Under normal circumstances, this would already be moving. The Romanian case is the wrench in the machine. And that's exactly why this stopped being a purely legal matter and became a political one. Because once 3 governments have competing claims on the same person, somebody has to give ground for anything to happen. Tate has described what that deadlock actually feels like from the inside.
Remember, the time I felt it the most was when I was on house arrest. I've been arrested by the Romanians twice. I've been charged with 21 crimes, and the Brits issued an extradition warrant. And I went to jail again for 24 hours, and the Romanian judge said that we're not going to send him to England until his Romanian case is finished. And I said to my lawyer, what does this mean? And he said, of those 21 charges, if you get convicted to jail, you're going to serve 10 years in jail in Romania, and then go to England back to jail and start all your criminal cases in England. I was like, what if I don't go to jail? He goes, well, then you're going to go to court for years, and after that, when all the charges are done, you're going to send to England and do your criminal case there. I said, so you're telling me for the next 10 years of my life, I'm going to be locked in my house, locked in jail, or going to court in 2 different countries? And he goes, yeah. And that was one of the days where I went from 100% power down to maybe 99% that day.
21 charges in Romania, a British warrant on top, and a Romanian judge ruling he stays until their case concludes. Whichever way that goes, the timeline he was given runs to a decade of house arrest, custody and courtrooms across 2 countries before the British case even begins. The Justice Department has confirmed the arrests were carried out in line with the treaties and law enforcement agreements governing extraditions. A source told CNN that whatever happened at state level, the arrest was signed off by the leadership of the criminal division. The Tate's legal team has come out swinging on that, arguing the British request cuts across the Romanian proceedings and a case they say they're already fighting in Florida.
Today wasn't about controversy. Today was about just enforcing Mr. Tate's, Andrew and Tristan Tate's rights and objecting to the extradition process. We are, of course, objecting to extradition because Andrew and Tristan are innocent. They've never done nothing wrong. They shouldn't be extradited for crimes they did not commit. They're entitled to have their day of court that we've been litigating the case for 3 years in Palm Beach County in Florida. So we're fighting extradition. We've assembled a team here. These are from the Roy Black's prestigious firm. The Honorable and since passed on Roy Black, he's a legend, and they're here. They have joined our team. We have a competent team. We have a wonderful team. We're looking forward to getting the best possible result under the sun. Proceedings have now started in this courtroom, so I am less liberal with what I'm able to say. But if you have any questions for me, I'll do my best to answer them in a way that's respectful of your time, of our time, and of the court processes.
Britain, meanwhile, has clearly made its decision. They want him back as soon as possible, and they're holding a charge sheet of 59 counts to put in front of him the moment he lands. The mechanics on their end go like this. The CPS assembles the request, a judge certifies it, the Home Office reviews it, and it travels through diplomatic channels to the relevant state. On the American side, the State Department decides whether to accept it, the courts examine whether it holds up legally, and the final call rests with the Secretary of State, which is worth sitting with for a second, because that's a decision landing on the desk of a man with a close working relationship with the president who just said he's staying out of it.
They acknowledge that the brothers...
Go ahead.
They acknowledge in court that the brothers reviewed the complaint and you with them. Could you explain their first reaction to these allegations?
The allegations, their first reaction to the allegations is the first reaction that any innocent man or woman would have. It's garbage, it's a stitch-up job, they're after us to punish us with the process. The process is the punishment. When you drag somebody's name through the media, when you slander them, when you defame them, when you accuse them of heinous and terrible allegations, the process becomes the punishment until you can clear your name. They've been clearing their names domestically and abroad for years. This is just the next logical conclusion in that situation. Keir Starmer just retired or is retiring. I'm sure he's mad that Andrew and Tristan Tate had a lot to do with his fall in Great Britain. And there's a new guy in there right now. But this is the last vestige of attack of a prime minister who didn't do a good job, and he continues to do bad work, and I'll just leave it there. Innocent until proven guilty. We're going to let the court process play out here the way that it should. We're happy to be here.
Mr. McBride, the U.S.-UK treaty allows an exception for extradition if the charges are politically motivated.
Right.
What you're saying...
Politically motivated? I think any one of these trees or any one of these rocks could answer that question. Yes, it's politically motivated. There's no question about it. These guys went to D.C. to exercise their First Amendment rights. They met with members of Congress as private citizens. They met with friends in Washington, D.C. They walked the grounds of the Capitol, and 3 days later, they're in the jumpsuit. You do the math.
And that's the tool that you're going to use to get them free.
Their lawyer's position there is that the whole thing is politically driven, and his argument rests on timing. Meetings in Washington, days on Capitol Hill, and an arrest immediately afterwards. I'd note that timing on its own proves nothing either way, but it's the argument they'll be running, and the US-UK treaty does contain an exception for politically motivated charges, so expect to hear it repeatedly. On the British side, the outgoing Prime Minister made no secret of wanting this outcome. He was asked about Tate constantly throughout his time in office, and getting the situation resolved looks a lot like the last item on his list before stepping away. It's worth remembering the sort of thing Tate was saying about him in the run-up, including openly predicting he'd end up in Belmarsh.
Look at his face. That's the face of evil. Keir, when you lock me up in Belmarsh, which I know you're going to do, that's fine. That is the face of evil, sir. Look at that. That is incompetence incarnate. Look, that's not a leader. England was the greatest country in the world. I watched. It brought tears to my eyes. I watched the Battle of Cairo. I watched Nelson fight the French fleet. A YouTube video. At the Battle of Cairo, I even tweeted it in full. The heroism showed by the Brits only 200 years ago. These were the best men on the planet. Thailand, tiny island with the largest empire in history. I was in America till I was 8, but I spent my teenage years in the UK. I feel very British. The British were the hardest, strongest, most resilient people on the planet. When the British were coming, only the Americans seemed to have beat them. You were scared when the British were coming. We sailed all around the world. Opioid wars in China, Battle of Cairo, Waterloo, you name it. We beat Napoleon. We did, the Brits. And now look, soy face is locking us up for having an opinion. And we're sitting there on our asses, afraid to say anything. This exact clip will be played in front of a judge when they lock me up. But it has to be said, because that is not the leader of the United Kingdom. That is not the leader the United Kingdom deserves. UK is an even more dire scenario than the United States. We need Trump or someone Trump-esque. And Nigel Farage isn't up to the task. He's not strong enough. It's me or I don't know who else. But UK is in a mess. We need someone of Trump's level to fix it. Because this guy, Keir, is doing nothing but run it into the ground. And it really, truly breaks my heart because the UK was the greatest country on earth. And that's why I want to become the Prime Minister, to restore it to its former...
Nobody gets to sidestep the courts forever, and at some stage he has to answer the allegations in Britain. But there's a genuine scenario where he doesn't go anywhere soon, and it involves Romania stepping in to say that their own case is still live, that they've spent years building it, and that Britain is getting in the way of their proceedings. Two allied governments both claiming priority is the kind of problem that gets solved by negotiation, not by a courtroom. Around the time news broke that the Prime Minister was resigning, Tate put out a message claiming he'd been handed documents naming the person he believes orchestrated the whole thing against him.
Mr. Keir Starmer, I heard you're in a little bit of trouble. I've got bad news for you because you're in a whole bunch more. I'm here in America and I've just been handed a document which proves that Morgan McSweeney, who was your chief of staff under the Labour government, was behind the entire attack that happened against me. It breaks international law. It completely breaks the presumption of innocence. It shows the corruption of the British state. You are worse than a communist. You're a scumbag. Everybody hates you. Everybody hates you. You have no public support. Nobody believes the things you say about me. Nobody supports you. And I now have the paperwork. So now I have to decide which judge sees these papers and where I take you and your entire cabal of corrupt pieces of shit who have completely destroyed the once great Britain. All of you scumbags, and Morgan McSweeney especially, are going to see a courtroom and you are going to face justice for what you have done in your attempt to silence me.
The name he's using is Morgan McSweeney, a political strategist who served as chief of staff at Downing Street. He resigned in February 2026, reportedly over having advised on the appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the US, a decision that became untenable amid the fallout from the Epstein files. I want to be direct about this part, guys. What Tate is describing is an accusation, and he hasn't published the documents he says he's holding. Someone resigning over an unrelated political controversy is not evidence that they engineered a criminal case, and until those papers are actually produced and tested somewhere, that's all it is. He also had a podcast ready to go the moment the arrest happened, in which he lays out the same theory, that this is retaliation from a government he's been attacking publicly.
They have one move left. They tried the letters, that ain't gonna work. They tried the money 2 days ago, that ain't gonna work. They're going to try to kill me. And if they are successful, if they do kill me, all I hope is that this video is watched by as many people as possible so that something happens and changes. Because if you're a man who speaks the truth, your ability to speak freely is directly correlated to your insignificance. You are only allowed to talk the truth if nobody listens to you. If people are listening to you, if you become the most Googled man on the planet and you're saying the right things, they will do everything they fucking can to take you down.
Something that's been mostly overlooked is that they've already lost a round in the UK courts. Not the case itself, to be clear, but an application. Facing those 59 counts, the defense went to court asking to be told who the accusers are so they could actually prepare, and that request was rejected. They won't see the specifics until the case is properly in front of them, which is a substantial disadvantage when you're trying to build a defense from another continent.
I'm not going to comment as to the women in any case. What I can say is that we have a defamation lawsuit against a false accuser that we're litigating successfully in Palm Beach County. That case is getting ready to go to trial. What I can say about the allegations in the United Kingdom, not a single solitary person has been identified. These are ghosts and these are phantoms. So we like to know who's accused Andrew and Tristan of what. And if we get there, then yeah, I can give you a reasonable-minded and intelligent comment about the potential allegations that come from these ladies. That was a reference to the Supreme Court. This is the judicial process. The top of the food chain is Clarence Thomas and the 8 other justices that abide there.
Their lawyer's framing of the accusers as unnamed is doing a lot of work there. And it's worth remembering that anonymity for complainants in cases of this nature is standard practice in Britain, rather than something invented for this one. The brothers had been operating comfortably in the States for a long time, moving between jurisdictions without much friction, and by every account, the arrest genuinely blindsided them. You can see it in the footage. They'd talked openly about Belmarsh eventually coming for them, so the destination was never a surprise. The timing was, and they clearly believed the current administration gave them a layer of insulation that turned out not to exist.
Their initial reaction was, what's going on? We've been in the United States, hanging out on multiple trips for a very long time. We haven't been accused of anything of substance here. We're American citizens. We operate freely. We operate as law-abiding people. We went to see our Congress people in D.C., and now we're getting arrested this feels political, and they, of course they didn't like it. No innocent man likes getting taken to jail. It's a horrible situation, but we're going to do everything that we can do with this wonderful team that we've assembled here to get them out. This is not a criminal proceeding, and what the judge was talking about is that the Bail Reform Act isn't the operative law here. We're looking at the extradition process. This is the first small step in that process. There's a lawyers-only conference coming up in a few days. Our legal team will talk to the government will talk to our team, we'll converse with the judge, we'll set a briefing schedule for substantive arguments to be made at some point in the future.
The last thing their legal team raised is the conditions they're being held in right now, which is solitary confinement. Their argument is that between their profile and the nature of what's alleged, they'd be targets in general population, and that isolation is being used as a form of punishment before any conviction exists.
Universally condemned around the world as universal as torture, as a human rights violation. So anytime you keep somebody in solitary confinement, what you're doing is you're keeping them there to break their spirit, to break their soul, and to break the psychology of the mind. It is an egregious misuse of the judicial system. And by the way, Andrew and Tristan have not been convicted of any crime. The Fifth Amendment of the United States protects them. It's not the standard of cruel, unusual punishment that the Eighth Amendment gives. It is the Fifth Amendment person. No innocent person can be punished while they're being held for any proceeding. Innocent and proven guilty, solitary confinement is punishment. It should not happen. My understanding is we're working to get them out of there as soon as possible. But if they're left in there for reasons that we won't be able to talk about right now, I'll be sure to let you know in my Twitter post. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you all. God bless Andrew and Tristan Tate. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you in a few weeks.
So where does that leave things? Britain has the charges and the political will. Romania has first claim and no obvious reason to hurry. America is holding them and has said it wants no part in deciding. Every path forward requires at least one of those three to move, and right now none of them has a reason to. That's what makes this so hard to call, and anyone telling you they know how it ends is guessing. What's your read on it, guys? Does Romania eventually let go and put him on a plane to Britain, or does that case stay open long enough to keep the UK waiting for years? Let me know in the comments, drop a like if this cleared things up, and subscribe for the next update on it. I'll catch you in the next one.